John Lennon, Yoko Ono, May Pang. They became a love triangle as bizarre as the secret life of the Beatle himself. Yoko handed John over to May to help their sexual relationship. But a year and a half later, Yoko decided it was time to claim what was hers.
She told me a few months prior to his going back, she says, I'm thinking of taking John back. And I said, what? And she says, I'm thinking of taking him back. She had no explanation. She said, I think it's time.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ari Povich, and welcome to A Current Affair. John Lennon, The Naked Truth. We'll have part 2 from the women who loved him after this. There was also a change in the bedroom. According to May Pang, John and Yoko's former assistant, Yoko attempted to solve their sexual problems by arranging an affair between John and May. Asked to comment on this story, Yoko said,
I think it's totally unfair because, obviously, for me to discuss that relationship, my view would be construed as subjective, and probably rightly so. And I don't think that I'm in a position to discuss that.
One morning I came into my office, and bright and early she's right in my office, sitting right across from me. And I said, oh, Yoko, you're up. And she says, yes, I must talk to you. And I said, okay. So I pulled out my notepad and my pen, and I said, well, okay. He goes, well, you know that John and I are not getting along. And I said, well, I'm sorry to hear that. And we're thinking, God, everybody knows in the house that they weren't getting along. So he's going to start seeing other people. I said, oh. And my first thought was, who am I going to be working for, her or him? And finally she said, well, you know, I know that he likes you. And my eyes just like lit up. And I said, what? Excuse me? I said, not me. He said, oh, no, I know you're not after him, but I know you would be nice for him. I said, why me? I said, I don't want to. She says, what? Just because I know you'll treat him right. Don't you want him to be treated right? So I know you will. So I said, no, I can't go out with it. He goes, oh, yes, you will. You should. I said, no. And this went on, and she finally said, listen, you don't have a boyfriend. This will be the best. I said, no. And she said, oh, you will go out with him. I said, And she said, oh, yes, you will. And she walks out of the room.
Excited that he now had permission to play bachelor, John soon won over 20-year-old May Pang. In the book Loving John, she tells of her 18 months with Lennon, a period John and Yoko later coined the Lost Weekend.
People ask me how John was as a lover. Okay. John was great. He was my friend. He was definitely the closest friend I had at that time. You know, and he, as a lover, he was my teacher. Does that answer it?
But amidst the fun and romance, there were problems between May and John.
Once she was nagging him or some trivial provocation in a little pool in a hotel in Palm Springs, and he seized her, both hands, strong man, around the neck, and started strangling her to death.
May Pang corroborated that story.
He did express his anger as well. And that's human, I think, and I think he was, in that sense, very honest, very open.
Jealousy surfaced at dinner with David Cassidy.
Me and David ordered the same eggplant parmesan, and John got very jealous. He went home, and I got back there, and he started screaming at me. He says, I knew it, you'd leave me for David Cassidy. And I'm going, what? What are you talking about? He goes, you were flirting with me. I said, I wasn't flirting, I just ordered the same. He goes, you ordered the same meal. I said, that's it. I ordered the same meal. And it was kind of strange. And then, of course, he called Yoko.
Usually it was Yoko calling John, sometimes 20 times a day, invariably telling him he was not ready to come home to her. One day she changed her mind.
She says, I'm thinking of taking John back. And I said, what? And she says, I'm thinking of taking him back. She had no explanation. She says, I think it's time.
It was also at this time that Goldman says Lennon became anorexic.
Nothing was more important to John Lennon after he was labeled the Fat Beatle than shrinking himself down to the size he was maybe at 17 years of age.
I was grossly overweight and needed help, and only one critic reviewer ever spotted it, and it was Anorexic. And he wrote it in the New York Post or wherever he was writing. He said, Johnny, or whatever he was called, is crying out for help. And I didn't realize that I was at the time. I was just writing the song for the, I've been commissioned to write a song for the movie. and I came out with help. It was like, that was the Fat Elvis period. You see the movie, he's very fat, very insecure, and completely lost of self.
Won't you please help me?
In December of '78, he had dropped to about 135 pounds. And I asked him why, and he said, he goes, I'm on this macro diet. I said, okay. He goes, well, you know how fat I used to be. And he wasn't fat at all. He was 155 pounds. And I think for a man who's 5'11", I think that was a pretty good weight. But he felt fat. And instead of losing 5 pounds or 10 pounds, he lost a lot of weight. And he said to me that he didn't want to be any heavier than 130.